Hello and welcome to another episode of the A2theK Wrestling Show. I can't remember what episode number it is, so I'm going to stop doing that this week. But what a fun week we have for everyone. So, as usual, as always, as you can come to expect, we're going to cover this week in wrestling, in which we're going to tell you all about the four big shows this week, being Raw, NXT, Dynamite, and SmackDown. Then we're going to cover the news. We're going to tell you all the latest news and rumours that have been happening in the world of wrestling this week. And lastly, this week, we're going to talk about the history of a living legend, the man himself, Edge.
We are.
So, Carl,
The rated.
do you want to tell us a little bit more about how the history of wrestling is going to be?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, we're going to be talking about, as you said, the rated R superstar himself. That is Edge. Looking back at his career, the highs, the lows, all the way from his debut way back when. Because I'm well sourced, and I know that year, all the way up to last week when he won the Royal Rumble again. Spoilers if you've not seen it, but if you haven't seen it by now, then come on, what are you playing? But yeah, after a storied career, he is going to be headed to WrestleMania in the main event again. So yeah, this segment is going to be part of our history of series, and it's going to be the history of Edge. So looking forward to that one, shall we say?
As I'm sure Adam Copeland is as well.
Oh yeah, that's it. We can call him that because we're cool, we're bros. But before we get into that, as you've said, we've got the usual segments. So let's kick off with the Ringside Report, and I think it's my turn to do the headlines this week. So coming up on the Ringside Report. Coming up on the Ringside Report, WWE files trademark for Mei Ying. Did they get Mei Young wrong? I don't know. Shaw Guerrero is taking a break from wrestling. Edge responds to some criticism after his Rumble win. A relationship has been established between AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. You got a girlfriend. Jim Ross thinks that WWE should line up with testing for performance-enhancing drugs. Just lighten up, guys. Lighten up. What do you think's in JR's barbecue sauce? That's all I'm saying. Stephen Amell's heels as
all
cast.
I know is I want more.
Is it Stephen Amell? Stephen Amell. Stephen Smell.
Amell.
Stephen Amell.
You're going to piss off the Arrowverse, Carl.
Sorry, guys. Not again. No, Stephen Amell has got a show called Heels coming to Stars Network, and he has cast CM Punk. Edge is pushing for a match against Daniel Bryan. WWE has signed the next big thing, and the next Brock Lesnar? ? Cesaro has reportedly re-signed with WWE. If you don't put the hyphen there, it looks like it says resigns, and that can really throw you off. Steve Cutler has been released.
That's what I like to do.
Maybe for testing positive for COVID-19, and if so, would he be the first person to be released for that reason? Some news from an older performer, Tyler Rex, has actually come out as transgender, so we're going to update on that. And lastly, bit of a creepy one, Alexa Bliss, unfortunately, has been dealing with a stalker or stalkers on Twitter, so not great. But all that coming up right now, Anthony. So do you want to kick us off with news story number one?
News story number one. I mean, it's one of them. This is almost every week we get something along this line. But WWE have recently filed a trademark for Mei Ying. This is something that they are apparently going to be using in terms of the storyline that involves Xia Li and Boa. Among this, they've actually trademarked a number of different phrases and names and the like. Some of them referring to basically that apparently they filed over a dozen Chinese language trademarks. So English translations being a trademark for the witch, diamond mine, the bridge, that sort of thing. So we're not quite sure 100% on the usage of all these trademarks just yet, but heavily suggested Mei Ying is going to be involved in the Xia Li and Boa storyline.
Interesting one. They bloody love filing, don't they? They love filing things, those guys.
Oh, you gotta have your trademarks in.
Their office must be beautiful. You know what I mean? Just everything filed away, all nicely. So the next story isn't a great one, unfortunately. But Shaw Guerrero, so daughter of the late Eddie, and also obviously Vicky Guerrero, has announced that she's taking a break from Pro Wrestling. So she's put a statement out there that basically just apologised. She's no longer going to be making any of her scheduled appearances, and basically she's no longer being advised to do so, just in order to kind of look after her own mental health. So she's apologised, and basically she said that she needs to take this time to kind of seek a little bit of help that she needs, and re-establish her eating disorder treatment, and hopefully get some answers and solutions, and reach a healthier mental state. So I think all we can say is we wish Shola a speedy recovery. She's been worked for NXT recently on AEW, was on commentary. She was at she's been with Mission Pro as well. So she's definitely been all over the place, and she's got a really bright future. So hopefully she can get herself back to where she wants to be, and then hopefully we'll see a lot more of her down the road.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Like you say, all we can do is wish her the best, and definitely we do want to see her in the ring again. So next one, Carl, is and I can see this happening, to be honest. But there's since Edge won the Royal Rumble, again, spoilers for those who haven't watched the Rumble yet. He's come under a little bit of criticism. Obviously, some people were absolutely elated, and some people were not so happy. Now, to be fair, to be completely honest, and if you watched our live stream, you'll know Carl and I, we weren't annoyed, but we weren't particularly thrilled with that result. Mostly because on our side of it, he didn't need it. And it was still going to be, whatever he did at WrestleMania was still going to be fucking awesome. But Edge has actually addressed the some of the heat he's been getting over the win. And as a quote from Edge, he said that he can't control people's opinions. He can't control if people have ageism issues. But what he wants to do is come back and tell how the story, and okay, and tell it with multiple dance partners. I don't know if that's been
excellent journalism from whatever website that's on.
And basically. But he's saying, he wants to come back. He wants to tell a story. He wants to work with different people, and hopefully they can get something from it as well. In this sort of interview, in this talk, he's mentioned a few different people he'd like to work with. One of them we'll elaborate on a little bit more later, but he cited the likes of seeing Cesaro and stuff like that, and thinking he can do some really good work with these people. So he's sort of like, essentially, he's not going to let the criticism bug him, as he shouldn't, because, I mean, let's face it, we were in the category of people who weren't overly thrilled with him taking the win, but it's not as if we're like going onto social media or really getting angry about it. The decision is what it is, and we are definitely going to enjoy whatever match he puts on at Mania and whatever he puts on beforehand. As like what some people can be quite sort of visceral on the internet, I suppose. So that's what he's doing. He's working his ass off. He's going to be in the best shape he can. He's going to put on the best match he can. He's just going to ignore the rest, basically.
Yeah. No, I think it's fair, isn't it? I don't know whether it's ageism or what, but yeah, I think, for us, as you said, it was more just...
Again, for me...
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. Like, you could maybe argue it's ageism, but it's ageism in the sense of, like, for us, it was... Yeah, you're a Hall of Famer. You don't need the accolade of the Rumble. But, again... I'm not bothered.
Yeah.
I'm not as annoyed as I was with Goldberg just rocking up and going, I'm having a title match. Well, that's a different story for a different day. Well, most weeks, actually.
We're bothered,
anyway,
but we're not bothered, and that's all that matters, right? So, the next one. So, AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling have now finally established a working relationship. So, spoilers coming up. If you haven't seen Dynamite this week, or Beach Break, a special edition of Dynamite, we saw Kenta show up on the show. So we saw kind of a little bit of back and forth going on between Moxley and Kenta, but then we finally seen it come to light almost on Dynamite. So Kenta is going to be challenging Moxley for his kind of US title. What was it? The IWGP, is it? The IWGP US title. Basically, so the reason why this working relationship has come about is because of the star power of Moxley and the fact that he is their US champ. So New Japan wanted that belt to be defended, so they've kind of agreed on that basis so that all that kind of stuff can happen, that they'll move forward with this and establish a way to work more closely together. So Kenta lives in Orlando, so it's kind of worked out quite nicely that he could be the guy to do this and take it forward. So yeah, I think exciting things. I think there's been a lot of talk at the minute of opening the forbidden door, hasn't there? Of we've seen AEW work with
the old forbidden door.
We've seen AEW work with NWA. We've seen them work with Impact, and now New Japan kind of coming into the fray as well. It's definitely an exciting time.
Bullet Club versus Bullet Club.
Bullet Club. Bullet Club versus Bullet Club. And yeah, so I think it's very exciting times. I'm excited to see what happens with Kenta. Obviously, it didn't work out super well for him when he was in NXT, or when he moved briefly over to SmackDown, I think it was. So, he's a very big talent. He's massive in Japan. So I think it's I definitely popped a bit when I saw him on Dynamite this week. So I think it's great news. It opens up so many different possibilities, so many different people can start to work together. And for the likes of us who just don't have the time to watch New Japan, but we know how good it can be, hopefully we can see some of this stuff on the shows that we are watching and start to appreciate it a bit more.
You see, I imagine it must have a similar effect, like people like us who are watching AEW, and we're now getting to know and getting to like certain faces from New Japan that we probably didn't know. I imagine the same effect is happening on the other side. If you're a New Japan guy and you don't really follow AEW, it's a win-win for everybody.
That's it.
I mean, first time I watched Impact in fucking years was because of AEW.
Exactly. So that's it. It gets more eyeballs on more promotions, on more talent, and all in all, it's better for the whole business, isn't it? I wasn't really following wrestling during the territory days. I think it's a little bit before my time, but we always hear around how
that's impossible.
We always hear around how kind of cool those times were and stuff, and having those kind of big attractions in different territories, and then they managed to tour the different places and work with these guys, and we're starting to see it happen in 2020, 2021. So crazy time, really, and a great time to be a wrestling fan, whichever promotion you choose, because as you've said, for Impact, like if those guys are loyal Impact fans but just don't really care about AEW or WWE, they're getting to see Kenny Omega on their screens, and they're starting to see Private Party and stuff like that, and Matt Hardy's back and things. So yeah, definitely.
Now, it's not part of the news, Carl, but do you think we could ever see WWE participating? Because in a lot of senses, money-wise, they don't really need to.
Yeah.
But from an entertainment point of view, it could be a good move. They could make some matches that you don't get to see.
I would be very shocked if it happened, to be fair. So I don't want to sit here and be like, yeah, I can see that happen, because I couldn't. So if I'm perfectly honest. But yeah, I know that's going to be a bit of a shame for you, because I know you're dying to see Tama Tonga and Roman Reigns square off. But yeah, I just can't.
That's exactly what I want to happen.
I just can't see it happening anytime soon. I think maybe, I don't know whether it's like a Vince thing or what. I think he's more just, I don't think he's opposed to it, because
we just need to.
Back in the day, he had that working relationship.
We need to get these two billionaires to sit down and have a talk.
He had that working relationship back in the day with ECW, didn't he? And he brought in Heyman and the guys way before. ECW ended up folding because he was trying to compete with WCW, wasn't he? So, but even then, he only did it to compete. So I think now that they've got the monopoly, I can't really. And Vince is the monopoly man. I can't see them doing that anytime soon.
Yeah, I take your points. It's a shame. Why can't they give us everything that we want all the time? So, Carl, the next one. Here's an interesting one for you. And I'd be interested to know how you feel about this as well. So, you might have heard Jim Ross has got his own podcast. I believe it's called Grilling with JR. Or Grilling JR. I don't know. Anyway. On his podcast, the topic of performance-enhancing drugs came up. And he has basically said, and I am paraphrasing slightly, that the likes of the WWE, not just WWE, but the likes of the WWE are very strict on their drug testing, and they're like, need to lighten up. It's all good. His mentality has been very much that if they're seeing the doctors and doing it as responsible as they can, and it's being controlled, like in that sense, like he classes it because it's an entertainment business, not a sport. There's no sort of gain in that sense. You know what I mean? And he's likened it to the likes of the Harlem Globetrotters, saying like, are the Harlem Globetrotters tested? Like they're there purely for entertainment, so it's irrelevant in a sense. And he's still trying to sort of say like, if you're irresponsibly taking stuff and it's not, you're not speaking to medical professionals and that sort of thing, or it's not controlled in that sense, then it's still an unwise thing to do and it shouldn't be permitted. But essentially that as long as a doctor is in control of the situation, then it should be permitted, and he sees no issue with that because it's all about the entertainment, and he wants his people to look as big as fucking possible.
Um,
How do you feel about that, Colin?
I've just got visions of JR just like, smoking a doobie at the time, just being like, you guys just need to chill, man. Just relax. Yeah.
I know. To be honest, it does feel a bit like it's like the minute he's like, it's like the Harlem Globetrotters, Like, no, totally different things.
Everyone just kind of humouring him.
But
Yes, I see.
no, like I can slightly see his point that it's like in the terms of performance enhancing, it's like, well, yeah, because they're not doing it to try and get an unfair advantage over something because it's all predetermined. But at the same time, like I think I'm confident WWE's issues are over like the potential health concerns and that sort of thing. Surely,
Well, I mean, you'd.
because again, I know, like you say, doctors control and all that, but we've I'm not an expert enough, so I'm sure someone will probably try and fight back on this one. But like, you hear of and you see things about roid rage and stuff like that, and you wonder whether like there's genuine concern over that when there are plenty of natural things you can take to bulk up and stuff like that. Again, no expert, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, I think
Clearly.
Again, no expert myself, but you've got to look at the lifespans of some of these absolute legends over the years who were all pumping steroids and all taking every kind of drug under the sun, and it seems like every week almost we're losing people way earlier than they should be going, and you've got to look at whether some of this stuff is related to that. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's a strange one really, because you think back to the likes of Shawn Michaels when he was at his worst and he was just completely off his face every week and stuff like that. And it's crazy really, because you've had Taker coming out recently as well saying people are soft and stuff like that. Like, really? I get you're old school and that's the way you came up and stuff like that, and I get it. I'm not kind of saying that today's better or anything like that really, but at the same time, in this regard, you can't really deny that they shouldn't be taking every drug under the sun and they shouldn't be taking steroids and things like that if it's going to have negative health effects. So I think it's a strange one.
Yeah, unfortunately, from Taker, it was a very, very old man mentality. That he's basically going, kids today. It's just not great. But I mean, the only thing I do totally agree with Jim in saying like it needs to be, you can't just be reckless with it. It needs to be under doctor's supervision in some way, because like you can't have them taking all sorts of getting stuff in a dodgy way or whatever. Do you know what I mean? At least be responsible with it. But I don't know. I don't like. Are we really? Because WWE have been strict on this sort of stuff for a while now, and you could probably look at some wrestlers and go, "There's no way they're not." But at the same time, has it really affected the show all too much?
Yeah.
Because I blame the writing more than anything.
Well, exactly. I mean, I'd like to think, like the Trailblazers of Brett and Shawn and, Perfect and people like that, and Piper and to a degree as well, were kind of the catalysts of change of, moving away from these super, muscle-bound, freak kind of sideshow attractions as being the only thing that is important in wrestling.
Now they've released the freak.
Oh. Nice. Do you know what? I don't even think have we even got that as a topic of news this week, or is he so irrelevant that we're not even going to be talking about him?
It's gonna be, because I think it happened this week, didn't it? I feel like it's been news for that long that it didn't end up here, but yeah, we'll mention that in a sec.
Why not? But yeah, I don't know. JR, keep being JR, man. Yeah, you keep doing you.
Yeah, you keep doing you, man.
Chill. So the next piece of news, Stephen Amell of Arrow fame, and he's been in WWE, friend of Cody Rhodes, big wrestling fan. He is bringing a new show to the Stars channel called Heels, and it is a pro wrestling themed show. And the news that kind of broke this week was we found out that CM Punk is actually going to be taking part in that show. He'll be joining the cast. So, yeah, interesting one. I think typical of Punk, just before the Royal Rumble, he was like, "Oh, I've got a big thing that's coming up, and I've got to isolate, for COVID procedures." And everyone's like, "Oh my God, he's come back in the Rumble." No, he's just on this TV show. So, but yeah, he's posted a picture in a wrestling ring with Stephen Amell, obviously doing some kind of training for the show or something like that. But yeah, I don't really know. Again, exceptional journalism on my part, but I don't really know the full backstory of the show. I believe it is just a series that is is around wrestling or wrestlers and things like that. So it's definitely looking like some kind of acting role as opposed to a reality based product or something from the looks of it. So interesting for CM Punk, really, because has he ever done any acting before? I mean, there was that time he acted like a UFC fighter.
From what yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Damn, that was savage. I mean, I suppose there's a level of acting in the wrestling world. I don't know if he's done anything outside of that, in terms of like TV shows or anything, but I'm sure he could turn his hand to it.
Obviously I'm joking. I've got massive respect for the guy for stepping into UFC, but I remember before his UFC debut, people were like, "Oh, well, has he got any experience?" And he was like, "Oh, I did a bit of fucking, I can't remember what it was, some random martial art. I think it was what was the martial art the guy in Tekken used to do? He was like the Jamaican guy. Is it Capoeira or something? I think. Yeah, capoeira, that's it. So I'm sure Punk had done some of that, and he was like, "Yeah, I've done a little bit of that." So
capoeira his way through the UFC.
So I don't want to laugh.
You know what? Like, I just want to say, because we've like that happened way before this podcast ever happened, but I was so disappointed both times, Punk. I was so disappointed. I was rooting for you. I wanted you to prove people wrong. Yeah. Like, you were getting so much heat before these matches. I'm like, I hope he gives, like, not necessarily wins, but gives a good show. And, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
It's just, it was horrible to watch both times. Both times.
It was.
The second guy was actually a massive, because he was just toying with you as well. But, fuck's sake.
Yeah, I think, in fairness, like, the first guy he fought was a guy called Mickey Gall. And he actually has turned out to be pretty fucking, pretty decent fighter. But the second guy who...
The thing is, like, you can live with the Mickey Gall one. You go, you know what? He got the better of him, and he ended it quick, and it happened. You know what I mean? But I can't remember the names, Carl, because you're more of a UFC guy than I am. But the second one, he kept that match going longer than it needed to. He was just.
Well, the second one,
it was
just to add to the hilarity of it all, was a guy called Michael Jackson. So, yeah, he did lose to Michael Jackson. I shit you not. But
and he's and you know what? He was a smooth criminal.
But yeah, I don't know. I think if
the beating he gave CM was quite bad.
if he turns his hand to acting like he turned his hand to mixed martial arts, I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. But no, I kid. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. To be fair, I think you can get Stars with Disney Plus, can't you? As of February, I think.
Yeah, as of the February. Yeah, I want to say the 20-something of February. 20-something accurate report
exactly.
Right there.
So I maybe might check it out if Punk's on the show as well, just to see if it's any good or not. But
Carl's endorsement. Maybe might check it out. You heard it here first.
But yeah, so interesting little tidbit there. CM Punk going into acting. Madness.
So speaking of people who've gone into acting, there's a poor segue, but I'll work with it. My next one, Carl, we're going back to Edge. So obviously Edge is back. He came back at the Rumble. He's definitely back. He's going to have some matches. And there's a lot of speculation. Who does he want to fight? And we mentioned some earlier. However, one that I specifically wanted to mention, Carl, and discuss with you, was he's mentioned Daniel Bryan. And he's not even just gone, "Oh, I'd like to wrestle Daniel Bryan." He's gone as far as saying he'd love to have an Iron Man match with this man. He thinks they could put on a fantastic match together. He sees just sort of something in the way Daniel works, and he's excited about the idea of putting on a stellar match with him. And do you know what? Iron Man matches are so fucking hard to pull off that, like, for him to have the confidence to say that's the type of match he wants to have with him, he must know that he can do something really good with the man. So that's pretty much it for the news article. But what do you think of that, guy? What do you think of the potential of a Daniel Bryan Edge match?
I mean, again, I'm going to be sarcastic here because that's what I do best. But firstly, what is it with Edge and having fucking super long matches? You know, the Orton match was enough, damn it. But no, I don't know. I think obviously would it be an amazing spectacle? Absolutely. But do I want to see either Daniel Bryan or Edge in an Iron Man match with, you know, the necks they've got? No, not really. So,
You know, it's a fair point.
but yeah, you know, look, you know, Daniel Bryan's fantastic, isn't he? And Edge is, he's just a Hall of Famer. He's come back. He knows it's definitely his last run, so you can see all this talent and people he never got to work with, and you know, he's desperate to have those matches and stuff. So, you know, if they have an Iron Man match, then I'm sure it'll be absolutely fantastic. Do I particularly want to? Do I think it's going to be a good decision for either of them? No, from a longevity standpoint. But you know, if they book it, I'm going to watch it because the pair of them are awesome. So,
I mean, let's be honest. It's not as if he's going, I want to have an Iron Man match with Goldberg. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know, a couple of minutes and he's done.
I mean, an Iron Man match with Goldberg is like a fucking 5-minute time limit, isn't it? To be fair, who can get the most finisher spams and pins in 5 minutes?
It's an hour-long match. There's just a lot of breaks. A lot of breaks.
Yeah, he's still down, folks.
But yeah, I mean, I can echo your points there, mate. I think you know, from a longevity point of view, is it the best match to go into? Probably not, but I would definitely watch it. And let's face it, Edge is looking in incredible shape.
Okay, definitely.
And Daniel Bryan's got a new haircut. So, you know.
What more can you need?
Sorry, Daniel, that's me.
It's just so savage. We're so savage today. And speaking of savage, Anthony, so the next one I've got is WWE have signed a superstar they are touting to be the next Brock Lesnar. So he's a young up-and-comer called Parker Boudreaux. And if you see the images of him, he literally does look like a Brock Lesnar clone. He's...
Oh, I misread that. I thought it was Bordeaux. I thought he was something to do with Scarlet.
Well, you know... you'd take any chance you could get to look into that, wouldn't you? But no, he's a guy that Paul Heyman has been really big on for a while. He's mentioned him months and months and months ago. You know, he's been looked at by AEW, he's been looked at by WWE. You know, he's a former football player. I think he's got a level of amateur wrestling kind of background as well. But he stands 6'5" and he's built exactly the same as Brock Lesnar. When you look at him, he just looks like an absolute beast.
You know what? He looks a shocking amount like him. It's not even just like similar stature. Like, even in the face, he kind of looks like him.
Yeah.
If you told me that was Brock's kid, I'd be like, yeah, that's Brock's kid. Yeah.
I mean, that could be the gimmick he gets, let's be honest. But, you know, he is super young.
I love it. See Heyman coming up, Brock Junior. I love it. That could work.
Oh no, we give them ideas. It's going to happen, isn't it? But you know, he's only 22. He certainly looks the part. But yeah, he doesn't have any kind of pro wrestling experience or anything like that. He's very much a raw talent. But from looking at him, he's the kind of guy that they think they could.
He's going to Raw.
Oh, you heard it here first, guys. He's the kind of guy that, you know, you can mold that talent into, you know, being almost a potential star like Brock Lesnar has been. So, you know, I think it's a great acquisition. Obviously, Matt Riddle was quick to chime in, tweeting, he looks just like Brock Lesnar but younger and doesn't hate me enough to refuse a match with me yet. Awesome.
I got Riddle's social media games on point. Anything, so.
But you know, Heyman, he was I said he's been speaking about him for a while. He also tweeted after the news broke, just saying his tweet is not a prediction, it's a spoiler. Save this hustle tweet for future historical reference. So yeah, very, very big on the guy. So I know Heyman doesn't have any kind of creative control there anymore. Or he's certainly not a member of the writing or producing staff anyway. But if you're a Paul Heyman guy, it's still a pretty sizable endorsement.
Do you know what would shock the hell out of me? And I don't know anything about Brock Jr. here, right? But you know what would shock the hell out of me? If he's a talker. Because straight away I'm looking at him, and because he's got a lot of the Brock Lesnar characteristics, I'm already assuming he's going to be shit on the mic, which is probably quite unfair to the left, right? But it's just because he fits the bill of being a Brock Lesnar type. So I'm expecting him to have a Paul Heyman. But what if he comes out and he's literally got everything? He's got the stature, the size, he can wrestle, and he's good on the mic.
I mean, it's a very rare occurrence when, an absolute diamond in the rough kind of does surface. You know what's funny though as well? Brock isn't actually that bad on the mic, to be fair. And I know because he's got the mouthpiece of Paul Heyman, people never really give him that much credit, but he's actually all right. Do you know what I mean? And another guy who you got to think of Kurt Angle. He was someone who they brought in from the Olympics as like an athlete, and they were like, yeah, he doesn't know anything about the business, but maybe he'll become something. He's one of the most charismatic guys ever. So looking at him, I completely agree with you. Do I think he's got
it? Kurt proved his worth by doing a rap battle.
That is true.
Rap battle Kurt is the best.
You know what? We need to do some sort of like segment on the best and funniest Kurt things over time. Because he has just been an absolute fucking legend.
I'll be honest, right? I'm gonna start hassling Kurt Angle. I want him on this show, and I want to rap battle with him. That's what I want.
Well, all being well, if the world, kind of returns to some semblance of normality, we are obviously going to be seeing Kurt in May. So, if he says no, we'll just rap battle him there and then anyway. We may.
Yeah. But yeah, so next Brock Lesnar coming up. Speaking, no, that doesn't matter. So Cesaro, Carl, no segue for you. Cesaro, obviously he had his contract coming up, and there was a lot of rumours about whether he was going to renew. And to be honest, it did look a little bit like WWE's going, look, we'll give you the push, don't leave. It did look a little bit like that, to be honest. However, rumours are, and bear in mind these rumours are coming from Dave Meltzer himself, are that they have signed, or at least verbally agreed, a new deal with Cesaro. And rumour has it that it may be in a similar vein to the likes of Daniel Bryan, where he's going to have a more sort of, what's the word? His approach is going to be more putting younger talent over kind of thing. Now, that's a shame, because I think he's got definitely got a championship run in him, which is, if that's what they're pulling them back to that sort of thing of going, well, you're going to help get the new talent over because you're a veteran, you've been on the indies for years, and you've been with us for like 10 plus years, you've got the experience there. Bit of a shame to just sort of put him in that category. But again, I mean, it must, if that element of it is true, then maybe it's something that he wants. But yeah, rumour has it, Carl, he's definitely at least agreed a new deal with WWE, and it's pretty much a done deal, if not already.
I'm going to be so sorely disappointed if he just gets used for that, to put new talent over, because he deserves a run of his own. Damn it! They could have pulled the trigger on him, years ago when he had this whole kind of Swiss Superman gimmick and stuff, and everyone knows what a phenomenal performer he is, and fine on the microphone he may not be amazing, but that's not stopped other phenomenal performers in the past. So I've always been disappointed, in several segments we've had of the most underutilized or underappreciated, or all these kind of other segments. Cesaro's always on that list. So if he's signed just for that role, I will be disappointed, because I would love to see him have a championship run. Although I could see it, because I believe as well his wife is a trainer or works in the performance center. So I think I think the plan potentially in the future could be for him to stick around long term and become a trainer down there as well. So I think that might be.
Do you know what the thing is, right? He'd be an absolute asset to WWE in that sense as well. It's just a shame we didn't get to see him have that shining moment, in front of the screen. But yeah, it'd be absolute. Just it just makes sense for them to try and keep hold of him in that sense because you forget how much experience he's got outside of WWE as well. He's a massive
Oh
asset to
yeah,
them.
100%. So congratulations to him if he has signed that new deal. And obviously he's got his, future secured and stuff like that. But yeah, man, I hope it's not just let's keep him around just to put the new guys over for a bit, because I'd love to see them finally pull the trigger on him and just be like, okay, we're going to give Cesaro a run. We're going to give him even if it's just like worst case,
And I can
like an
even
Intercontinental run, but ideally a world champ.
I'd love for them to give him a world champ run, even if it's just the once, so he's got that under his belt before he actually goes, I'm going to ease back, I'm going to help push the younger talents, I'm going to do a bit more booking and training and that sort of thing. Then fine, yeah, just one run.
Well, by all accounts, if from a SmackDown perspective, he has been getting a bit of a push, and like a sizable push, but I believe he was meant to be winning the gauntlet match that Shinsuke, nearly won, and then they had the whole Adam Pearce thing, but he hadn't signed his contract yet. So they didn't pull the trigger with him, and that's why Shinsuke.
Like, well, we can't
so that's why
that
Shinsuke was like the last one in there and had that kind of exposure. But since then,
you're joking. So Cesaro missed out on losing.
I know he was so close to getting that major rub from Pearce. That sounded wrong, but yeah, I don't know. I think I'd like to see the positives of the fact that he's looked, pretty decent in his last few showings on SmackDown now, and even this week it was another great contest from him and another kind of. It was a win under his belt as well again. So I really hope they do something with him.
Yeah, but seeing will be believing. Hopefully there's something there. Hopefully the push is merited and they are going somewhere with it.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, someone they're not going anywhere with is the newly released Steve Cutler. So yeah, bit of a strange one. This, it kind of just came out the blue. So obviously, Steve Cutler got kind of brought back, and he had the whole thing on SmackDown where he had the stuff with Wesley Blake and what the fuck, the guy with Elias, what's his name? Riker, that's the one. Yeah. So we had Cutler, Blake, and Riker, didn't we? As this kind of new group. Then all the stuff happened with Riker, and then he's ended up going to Raw, teaming up with Elias. But then he was brought back briefly, wasn't he, to be put with, was it Corbin? It was like one of the hooded guys.
Yeah, they had like the King's Men or something, didn't he?
So that was quite recent as well. And he was brought back for that, and I was like, okay, so they are going to continue to use him. But then no, they have they've released him this week, and there's been some rumours or kind of discussions around the reasoning behind it, and the belief is it could be due to the fact that he got COVID-19 as well as his fiancée Deonna Purrazzo from NXT. So I believe Vince was furious because one of the conditions was of like Roman Reigns coming back and stuff like that, as he assured him he would keep it a safe working environment and he'd do everything he could, all that kind of stuff. And it came out that Cutler and Purrazzo had gone to a New Year's Eve party, and that's where they kind of contracted it. So the belief is that Vince was kind of furious that he would do that, and therefore that was one of the main reasons behind his release. So,
yeah. I mean, I heard it started out that Vince was furious that he sneezed, and then it turned out there was a reason he sneezed. So, kidding, of course.
But yeah, I don't know what.
But you know what? To be fair, like until you mentioned that, then like I was like, that's really unfair. Like that Vince has offered Roman something that he really can't control very well anyway. But I didn't know about the New Year thing, which probably doesn't help the argument, does it? In all fairness, I'm not saying that they should have released him for it, but like, yeah, probably doesn't help the argument when you've been sort of told very strictly not to do stuff.
And I think
that.
To be fair, Deonna Purrazzo's not doing herself any favors either, because she's gone on Twitter and kind of been trying to defend him almost, and she said that as soon as they found out, they didn't have any symptoms, but as soon as they got tested and found out, they did everything that was required, they self-isolated, etc., etc. But then she's now saying, well, but loads of other people went to New Year's Eve party as well, and they're still employed, and blah blah blah. And it's like, well, yeah, but I don't know.
Was one of them. Do you want to start naming names and let Vince go through the list,
Well,
or
exactly.
you know, there's no point saying loads of other people.
Yeah,
Is
there's
there?
no point trying to bring everyone else down.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, I think it's a real shame to go out like that. Like,
yeah, no, agreed. Especially when he got brought up, and then all that kind of stuff happened with Riker, and then there was that like uncertainty, and then you got this new kind of thing with Corbin, and then just kind of just gone. So yeah, strange one. I think obviously from our opinion, is it probably irresponsible during a pandemic to go and have a bloody New Year's Eve party and mix with loads of other people and ultimately end up getting it? Yeah, probably a little bit. But there's different rules in different places.
Yeah.
So.
I know most of us just got drunk alone in our houses.
Just like every other night of the week.
Just like every other week.
So a bit of a obviously sad for him that he's he's being released and stuff, and hopefully he just land on his feet and get signed somewhere else. But yeah, a lot of interesting things surrounding that release.
And I think it's important to say. Well, I think the Honor's pretty much confirmed it, but we don't like WWE have not officially said that's why they've released them, even though it seems very likely. I'll just make that a little clear. So, Carl, the next one. We have a one. Gabby Tuft has come out as transgender. Now, Gabby Tuft is not a name you might recognise, Carl, but she used to wrestle for WWE under the name Tyler Rex. I want to say back in 2012, or left in 2012, so before, pre-2012. And yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's been, she's sort of been very sort of open about it, very communicative about it, put a lot onto social media, and rightly so, because it was a very difficult transition to go through, a lot of sort of emotion involved, a lot of and it's nice to see that it's this whole thing of like trying to shine a light on it, do you know what I mean, and it's just sort of going through and pointing out, like, this is like, again, like certain statements she's put out saying that she's no longer afraid, and she's no longer fearful. She can now say with confidence that she loves herself for who she is, and it's one of them where, again, if you get to that point, and if that's sort of ultimately she's had to sort of take that time and get to that point where she can be like that, then that's fantastic, because it's an interesting read for anyone. I won't try and sort of go through it all here, but like when you consider like how sort of open she's been about everything, and talking about basically fighting with this her entire life and that sort of thing, it is like. And it's fantastic to see how supportive her family's been. Wife and I want to say 2 kids, might have been just the one. But yeah, I mean, as I say, the whole thing. Congratulations to her. But I just wanted to give that one a mention, and I don't think I could do it justice. So it's probably better just visit her social media, visit her Instagram, and just sort of have a read of some of the stuff she's put out and what she's sort of gone through to get where she is now.
Yeah, definitely, and hopefully she's really happy, and congratulations on all that as well. So. And the last one, Anthony, to round off this week's news.
Not the last one, Carl. We threw a surprise one in. That
okay.
Go on.
We won't have an image for that, but that's fine. You like to drop these things on me, but it's cool.
It's
the last one we want to talk about is it's not a great one, to be honest, and I don't really necessarily want to shine a lot of spotlight on these people, to be fair, but it is newsworthy.
By these people, you mean?
Yes, basically, to use the right terminology. But basically, Alexa Bliss, obviously, she's a famous women's wrestler, doing a fantastic job at the moment, and with that fame and that celebrity, oftentimes comes people reaching out on Twitter and that kind of thing. Living this kind of public life. You start to see some disturbing stuff sometimes, and we saw something similar a while ago with everything that went on with Sonya Deville and with Mandy Rose, and someone who was kind of almost obsessed with Sonya, and that ended in quite a scary situation. Well, it looks like something similar is kind of happening at the minute with Alexa Bliss. So she called out or tweeted back to a guy called Robert on Twitter, just kind of saying, like, for the last time, you don't know me, stop, whatever. And then when you kind of look into it, this guy's been kind of tweeting at her for, quite a while, saying things like,
Yeah, there was a lot of tweets there.
yeah, and it seemed like he had the belief of that she was his wife and they are married, and that her fiance, I forget his surname, Ryan Kabara, is it something like that?
Like that.
But basically saying that her fiance is like keeping her there against her will, and just kind of crazy, outlandish things like this, and
even tweeting at a fiance as well, which is like proper delusional shit. This isn't like, because social media is a much bigger thing than when we were kids, but like they cater to a younger sort of teenage product, and you can see a lot of teenagers like fancying it and maybe getting a little bit like sort of that whole big crush thing, and they've got social media so they can approach it and go, oh, you're beautiful and all that kind of stuff. But this is like proper, like, what's the word? Like totally detached, like he utterly convinced in his tweets like that they're together, and he's trying to save her from Ryan and stuff like that. And it's like, where the fuck are you coming from, man? What planet are you on?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's unreal, like the level these people are getting to these days, and it seems to be happening more and more, because we had the incident with Paige not too long back as well.
Yeah, we did. But I don't know, just I remember seeing a kind of tweet back this, and kind of just I just read through a lot of the stuff, and it is scary. Do you know what I mean? He's he's completely convinced himself that they are an item, and that all this is happening, and that kind of thing. Or so it seems anyway. But to be fair to Alexa as well, when someone's super scary like this coming at you, she even went back to everyone who was obviously trying to defend her by saying, don't kind of be horrible to him and take it out on him, and like that's not the right thing to do. So it's admirable of her to kind of have that level of maturity about it, to say that that's not the answer. But
yeah, I can see why she's out of it as well, because like you just don't know what the right way to handle these things is, but she's trying to sort of publicize it. I suppose she's trying to sort of say it publicly to him, to maybe try and have an effect in that way, because like, how do you deal with these people?
Well,
like, it's happening more and more. I'm sure she knows a few wrestlers who it's happened to, maybe stories we haven't even heard of, and she's trying to approach it in this way to try and deal with the problem. And by all accounts, he's now set up another account, or we believe it's the same fella, and is carrying on. So you just don't.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
Like
what do you do with these things?
Potentially, it could be the same guy, could be a different person. I'm not sure what's worse, to be fair. But the original person who was calling themselves Robert is still kind of tweeting at Alexa, but is also starting to tweet at people like Sasha Banks and Bailey now as well. Whereas there's a second account, a guy who's gone by the name of Albert, and he is everyone kind of assumes he's the same person, but he seems to be, I don't know, maybe a little bit more violent or a little bit more threatening, kind of saying that he's on his way to Florida and he's coming for her, and he's gonna basically alluding to causing harm to Ryan Cabrera and stuff. So yeah, it's it's a scary thing out there, and
you got some serious fucking.
I think
issues.
as well,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about social media as well. It's so easy to hide behind some kind of fake alias and say these things and stuff like that, and it's a scary thing sometimes. I really hope that if these people are genuine and they're not just trolling and stuff like that, and I really hope that they just get some help. Then also for the likes of Alexa and all these other people out there who have to deal with this as well. I think it's just such a shame for them, because they don't sign up for this. They sign up to live the dream and be pro wrestlers, and obviously with that comes a level of celebrity. But no one should have to put up with
the
that.
annoying thing is as well, this is what's gonna, if this sort of stuff keeps happening, this is what's gonna ruin fan interaction. Because there's plenty of fans out there who love them, they just want to meet them, they want to say hello to them, that sort of thing, and they love engaging with the fans. But the more bad experiences they have, the less likely that's going to keep happening. And I can see us getting to a point, probably in our lifetime, Carl, where it's like, stay behind the glass, approach the glass when you were told to, and all that kind of thing, just to meet your favourite celeb, because you can't go fucking near them because there's psychos out there.
Yeah, nuts. Scary time. Scary time.
So, last one, Carl. Surprise bonus round. Not a surprise because we mentioned it earlier, but one I forgot to put in the listing. and you do have a graphic for it because we put it on social media. But for those who don't follow us on social media, the fuck are you doing? Follow us on social media. But the one we have, Carl, is Lars Sullivan has finally been released. And I say finally, I wasn't particularly wishing for it. I'm just surprised it didn't happen sooner with everything that he's been doing. Now, he made his sort of on-screen return. He was getting quite a push. Then he was pulled again. And I'm not saying it was directly connected to, but it might have had something to do with him. Remember when it came out that he was DMing some... was she like a fitness instructor or something like that? Or was it? I can't remember what she was selling now. But she was some sort of business that he'd been to before, and then he started asking her for booty pics and stuff like that. And it's like, fuck's sake, put your phone down, Lars. And, you know, he seems to be on TV a lot less from there. And now we've had it officially that Lars Sullivan, the Freak, has now been released by WWE. So what do you think, Carl? Do you think this was the straw that broke the camel's back, or do you think it's been sort of, because obviously we know he'd suffered with some issues as well. I'm going to say anxiety. Apologies, I'm wrong on that. When it comes to sort of being on the bigger stage as well. So do you think it's been a combination of them, or do you think he's just been too much of a sort of social media fool?
I mean, it's got to be a combination, hasn't it? You know, it had to give. You know, something had to give eventually. There's just been so many different things that have come to light, and the fact that they were pushing him so recently and trying to do this monster angle and these little interview vignettes and stuff with him, then yeah, I can only assume it's not been like a long time coming. It's okay, really, we can't put up with this anymore. Maybe it was like this is the final straw, as you've said. So yeah.
So the sum total of his second run on the main roster was a few interviews backstage where he talked about hurting children.
Yep.
I mean, I think he was a child as well in those stories, but in any case, it's kind of weird. So that's what we got: some weird stories and virtually no matches.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully he finds his feet and finds a career wherever appropriate. But as I say, I wasn't wishing him any ill will. I just say finally because there's been a few different incidents over the years for him. And that's our last one, Carl. That's the one.
Well, actually, we've got... No, I'm joking. I
was
going to throw a surprise one in, but I don't have any. But no, that's it. Another week in the Ringside Report.
Dun, dun, dun. So I'll throw that in.